From Relay, this is Upgrade, episode 525 for August 19th, 2024. Today's show is brought to you by Fitbod, Delete Me, and KRCS. My name is Mike Hurley. I'm joined by Jason Snell. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Mike. By my calculations, if you do 52 episodes a year, after 10 years of Relay, you should have 520 episodes. This is episode 525. We're not at our 10th anniversary yet. I just want to point out again how much extra work we do.
How
much extra work we do. No, we burst right through. There's like a week, and it's like, hey, one episode of Upgrade, and we just kind of jam ourselves in there and like, nah, two this time. Boom, we did it.
How about that?
And we high five, and we did that like 9 times in 10 years, apparently. So, great.
I have a Snell Talk question for you. It comes from Anthony, who wants to know. Jason, you said on the last episode that you were a long-time U2 fan. I'm curious, what is your favorite album or song from the band U2?
Originally, this question said lifelong, and I just want to point out I'm not a lifelong U2 fan because they didn't exist until like 1980.
Okay. Well, the whole lifetime of the band.
And in fact, and I was not a fan for the lifetime of the band. In fact, when my sophomore year in high school, we had to do like reports about a thing we liked. I don't even remember what, extended project of some sort. And there was a guy in our class who did a thing about U2, and we thought it was dumb. And then in 1987, The Joshua Tree came out, and it's a great album, and it's my favorite U2 album, and I became a U2 fan. So that's the answer, The Joshua Tree. And favorite song, I don't know. I had a hard time picking. I don't have one clear favorite. Maybe one, which is from Achtung Baby, or With or Without You, which is from Joshua Tree. But like, it's great. I have a playlist called Best of U2. It's got like 50 songs in it. It's great. And then there was that time that Apple's Apple Music iCloud sync thing, whatever, had a little burp, and I got an additional playlist called Best of U3.
Oh my God!
So that was
I was not ready
exciting.
for that. I nearly just spat water into my microphone. That's going to affect me for the rest of the episode now.
It incremented helpfully when it got a sync failure of some sort, and I thought, oh no, I don't know which one of these playlists. And there aren't two playlists. There were. It made a mistake, but it does that thing where it's like, well, okay, I'm going to add a number onto the end, but then they've obviously got code that says, but if there's already a number at the end, just increment it, and therefore I got a playlist I have not yet deleted because it's hilarious. Also, by the way, does not contain the entire contents of the Best of U2 playlist. They messed that up too. But the Best of U3, a great classic playlist that I've never listened to, because why would I do that?
Incredible.
Yeah,
that's so good.
Some good Apple Music bugs there.
You have to keep it, right? Like, it's too good to get rid of. Yeah.
I do. Best of U3. It's Best of U3. There are only 34 songs. Best of U2. There's 55 songs. So what? Don't ask.
But let me ask
U3.
you, though, Jason, is the Best of U3 playlist better than is the curation better? Is it a good edit, do you think?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I don't know what I don't know. And it's not just cut off at the end. It's like there's some very weird sync problem that happened. I don't know. Don't ask at Apple Music.
If you'd like to send in a question of your own to help us open a future episode of the show, just go to upgradefeedback.com and send in a Snell Talk. We have some follow-up from last week's episode, Jason. We'll start with some stuff on macOS screen sharing. So I'm seeing from 9 to 5 Mac here. Starting in Beta 6, the screen sharing prompt now allows you to approve for a month rather than a week. And the pop-up says, app name is requesting to bypass the system private window picker and directly access your screen and audio. This will allow app name to record your screen and system audio, including personal or sensitive information that may be visible or audible, and you can deny, or you can approve for 1 month. Is this better?
No. Well, yes, but it's better, but doesn't solve the underlying issue.
Yes.
Is what I would say, which is asking once a month is better than asking once a week. But not having apparently a way to say, no, really, I approve this app, stop asking me, I think is user hostile. And then I also think the way that this is written, and again, it's a beta, but assuming that it ships like this, it's written in a way that shames the developer and provides a level of technical detail that no regular user is going to understand. Bypass the system private window picker and directly access your screen and audio. Like,
I don't actually know what private window picker means. What is that? What are they talking about?
There is so it's a system thing that they did where where there's a more like constrained way to grab information off the screen, where you as an app ask the system to have the user pick a window, right? It's that thing, and the user picks, and it gets shared back to the app, so that there's an intermediary. This is one of the ways that Apple has tried to make things more private and secure, is that there's an intermediary that asks. So like in iOS, it's the idea that when you select a photo, instead of the app reading your photo library, the app asks Apple to ask the user to select a photo, and the user selects a photo, and Apple hands the photo that was selected back to the app, right?
Yes.
That's more secure and private that way. The app can't see all the photos. The problem is, one, that's very technical API kind of thing going on here, and two, it doesn't actually solve the larger problem of apps that actually do need to read your screen and are not just sort of screen sharing a window, which is what this seems to be suggesting.
Yeah, so apps that want to see everything, do they get the 1 month still, or is it just still 1 week for those?
No, I think they get the 1 month.
Okay.
I think
this
that's
is just
the
an
change
example
here.
of the text, one of the prompts. Yeah, I mean, a month is better than a week, but it's still worse than forever.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I mean, that's what we're arguing here. And here's what I'll say. We got some good feedback from a couple of listeners who wrote in, and these were things that I hadn't considered. I'm sure you had, but we didn't talk about them on the show specifically. So first one comes from Adam, who says, this change that Apple wants to make is going to be a miserable mess for IT professionals. Services like LogMeIn and Splashtop must have screen recording permissions to allow remote IT support to take control and support remote computers. Having to accept the permission often will be a disaster for IT departments. Confused users might disable the software and create more work and frustration. And Stephen wrote in and said, I have a Mac Mini home server like many people do. I also work at a church where people are remote every day, but Sunday and remote into production machines to set up the weekend. If you never or rarely see the screen of the machine, how would you re-authenticate so you can continue to have remote access?
Yeah, I saw a Mastodon post by Luke Van Dahl, who does the Screens app, that was similar, which is how do you connect to a remote Mac in order to control its screen so that you can administer it when it's in a data center or something like that, if the act of connecting to it pops up a dialogue? Like, you can't use what happens.
Like, at least the second example in that example is like, it's something you're doing to your own computer, right? So like, maybe you can work it out. But that first one about IT departments, that feels like a nightmare.
I mean, I'll just say the second one, maybe you can work it out. If there's a way to do it that doesn't do that prompt, that's fine. But if I'm on vacation and I need to connect to my server back at my house and it throws up a prompt, or honestly, if I'm sitting at my desk and I need to connect to my server in the back of the house and it throws up a prompt like that and I don't have access to the interface, it's actually an enormous problem because I can't access that computer if that's the case. It's a very, very, very bad use case. That computer doesn't have a monitor attached to it.
And you can't dictate when it's going to show you that prompt either, can you?
And there's that. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't APIs for a lot of this stuff and there are ways through and all that. I'm just saying that there are lots of complexities here. Both of these examples are good. And we'll come back to what we said last week, which is I think all appreciate Apple trying to protect users. The issue is protecting the users haphazardly, stumbling around and throwing a bunch of permission dialog boxes up there inartfully and without thinking through all the use cases is going to break people's workflows and make more work for people. And they need to consider the whole before doing this. And that's at the root of my criticism of stuff like this, is it just doesn't feel very well thought through. Like the security people, their job is to think things through carefully. And the reasons that they're choosing, I think, are careful. And the APIs that they're building to create more secure ways of accessing private information, I think, are carefully planned. And then you get to the point where it meets the user and it does not feel carefully planned. It feels haphazard. It feels last minute. It feels like people who are really under the gun to force an interface onto users because this API has been built and the security stuff has been built. And the last people to meet it, where the rubber meets the road, are the people doing the interface, and they're just kind of like tossing things out there. And as I've read this week from a bunch of people, it also is very piecemeal. Like, that's the other problem, is there's no holistic answer here. There's no, there's 3 screen recorders that you use. I'm going to put up a dialogue in, at an unknown time to you in 6 or 7 days where I say, hey, there are 3 apps looking at your screen. Do you care? Let us know. Instead, you'll just get 3 pop-ups at 3 different times, presumably. And it's just, again, it's just haphazard and frustrating. And I've discovered in the last week listening to podcasts that I have become the permissions guy, apparently.
Yeah, you have. It's part of your
And
personal
I don't
brand
want to
now.
be that guy.
Yeah, but
somebody has to say, you can't just go, oh, yes, Apple, thank you. Thank you for protecting us. Thank you. When you get smothered by pop-ups. And partly the people who just click yes to get it out of their face, they're not even going to complain. That's a huge security problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who's going to say, right? Who is there to say? So if I have to be the one to say, this is bad, do better, I do think that's kind of part of my job. And unfortunately, the reason I keep coming back to these permissions requests is not because I'm against security and privacy. It's because this is a place where Apple is failing, right? Like, they are not doing a good enough job. So that's the reason. Like, I would rather not, but that's the reason, is my Mac belongs to me. I need to have a certain level of control over it. You can get in my way to a certain extent, but then you need to get out of my way when I tell you to, and that's not happening. And it's unacceptable. They need to change how they approach this.
Why can't they just, I mean, there already exists like that little screen sharing thing that pops up in the menu bar that goes purple, right? Like, why isn't that enough? Like, I don't feel like I'm having to re-authenticate my camera usage for applications. And like, my camera, the access to my webcam for an app is audio is like, that's as dangerous in my opinion as screen sharing, just in different ways.
I got my little orange microphone in my menu bar.
And like, there is the purple one, right? Because I remember you had to change some stuff with Bartender to get it to work. So like, what is not good enough about that system that it can't be adapted? And like, if what it takes for me to never see these things is to have another one of those colored icons in my menu bar, I'll take it. Fine. Right? Like, I'm a big boy. Like, I can handle that. It's not going to upset me that much if I get to do the things on the Mac that I want to do, and maybe it protects other people. But like, why does it have to be this pop up every month? Like, just give me the little purple icon in the menu bar or whatever.
I hope that the sign that they pushed this to a month is a sign that there's been some understanding inside Apple that this is maybe not the best approach, and that hopefully they will continue to make changes here. Honestly, having to give permission again later is fine for me, because it does solve a lot of issues where instead of somebody has access to your system and you give permission in the moment and then they never ask again is not a great situation to be in.
No.
But the next time they ask, or if you go immediately to a particular setting, at some point you need to be able to say, stop asking, or notify only, right? Where, like, that's the other way to go, right? Which is, instead of having a permission, have a notification, have a thing in the menu bar. There are other things you could do, but that's my big point here is, I feel like a bunch of smart people at Apple who are experts in user experience could get together and come up with kind of a holistic approach that serves the needs of privacy without getting in the users' faces quite as badly and giving users power to control their Macs when they want to. It doesn't feel like that has happened. And instead, it's just another permission thing comes off the conveyor belt and they slap another permissions dialog box into the OS, and we're showering in them now, and it's too much. They need to do better, and that's just and I'm aware of the fact that there are internal Apple issues here, right? Like, I'm aware of the fact that there are certainly people at Apple who feel exactly the way I do. They're just not being heard. And so I don't want to say Apple doesn't get it. I think there are parts of Apple that do get it, and I think even the parts that maybe don't get it kind of get it, but they're like, they just don't care and they don't think it's important enough. And so, all I can do is complain, I guess. So there, sorry, I did it again.
Well, we're doing the best we can out here, I wanted to just do some follow-out, Jason, to a wonderful movie that was put together by a friend of the show, Ian Anderson. Ian was with us at the Relay 10 event, and he was going to be making a video, and he ended up making this beautiful thing, which is kind of like, honestly, it feels like a love letter to Relay, and he spoke to all of the hosts that were there, including you, and everybody, including you, had some very lovely, incredible, heartwarming things to say about what we've built together over the last 10 years, because Relay is now 10 years old as of yesterday when we're recording. And it's a 15-minute video. I've watched it 3 times. I cried all the way through all 3 times. It's very special to me, and I hope that people check it out. And also, if you subscribe to Ian's channel on Friday, I think this coming Friday, he's going to be putting up a 2-hour interview that he did with me and Steven. So we both sat down with Ian and spoke to him for like an hour about Relay, and he's putting that together too. But he ended up making something, I think, wholly more heartwarming. And everyone that I've seen that's watched it in our Discord and on social media is just thought it was incredible. So I hope that people will give it a time. And then again, I would like to thank you in person, because I have waited until now to say it, that it meant so much to me, the stuff that you said, and I loved it very much.
That's great. Ian literally just said, Jason, here's a microphone. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. And I had to speak extemporaneously. It was a little before we went on for the show. So it was,
Gotta get those raw emotions, baby. Let's go.
And I remember nothing about anything there. So yeah, I'm glad.
Very sweet.
It's great.
It was just super nice to me that like so many people said such similar things unprompted from each other, which was just made me feel real good about this thing that we've all built together over the last 10 years. And I'm feeling very thankful this past weekend. So I hope people check it out, because I think it's worth the 15 minutes. This episode is brought to you by Fitbod. If you're looking to change your fitness level, it can be hard to know where to get started, which is why you should check out Fitbod. It is both an easy and affordable way to build a fitness plan that is made just for you. This is super important because everybody has their own path, their own journey with personal fitness. So Fitbod makes sure that they take all the information that they can to customize everything to suit you perfectly. It will adapt with you as you're improving, making sure that every workout remains challenging and interesting, but also pushing you to make the progress that you're looking to achieve. Because you will see the results you're looking for when a workout program is tailored to your unique body, experience, environment, and goals. Fitbod stores everything, all of this information in your Fitbod gym profile, and they use this to track your muscle recovery as you're doing your exercises and doing your workouts. And they also then will adjust the workouts that you're doing, so you're avoiding burnout and keeping up your momentum. Fitbod has analyzed billions of data points that have been fine-tuned by certified personal trainers to make sure that you're doing the best work you can when you're looking to get fit. You can also make sure that you're going to be learning new movements the right way, thanks to their more than 1,000 demonstration videos, which is one of my favorite things in the app, because whenever they show me a new exercise, I want to feel confident and comfortable with it. So they have instructions that are written, but then also videos that are shot from multiple angles. So I can watch these and I know what's going on. But then once I've learned them, I don't need to look at that stuff. And I can be using my Apple Watch and it tells me what exercise I'm doing. I'm like, great, I know how to do that one. And I can just do it and continue. But then whenever I need to, pick up my phone again and watch the videos to learn something new. Your muscles improve when they work in concert with your entire musculoskeletal system. Overworking some muscles while underworking others can negatively impact your results, which is why Fitbod tracks all of your muscle fatigue and recovery to design that well-balanced workout routine. The app is great to use. As well as those videos, you can stay informed with their progress tracking charts, their weekly reports and sharing cards to let you keep track of your achievements and personal bests and share them with your friends and family. Personalized training of this quality can be expensive, but Fitbod is just $12.99 a month or $79.99 a year. But you can get yourself 25% off your membership by signing up today at fitbod.me/upgrade. So go now and get your customized fitness plan at fitbod.me/upgrade. One last time, that is fitbod.me/upgrade for 25% off. Our thanks to Fitbod for their support of this show and Relay FM. It's time to lawyer up, Jason Snell.
Clunk, clunk.
Fortnite is back on iPhone via the Epic Games Store and Alt Store PAL. So we knew this was coming. It has now happened. The Epic Games Store has launched. Fortnite's on there and a couple of other games as well. Epic has said that they're going to expand this out as time goes on. And they're going to be expanding and extending the deals and arrangements they have on the Epic Games Store and other platforms to this. Namely, Epic's cut is 12% of transaction fees. So That's one of the things that they'll be extending for other games that want to join. But there's been loads of interviews with Tim Sweeney talking about how things like the core technology fee makes him think it's probably not going to be a lot of games that want to join, but nevertheless. AltStore has also announced that they have received a grant from Epic, which they're going to be using to pay the core technology fee for their users. AltStore say that this basically no longer means that at the moment you give them a fee and it covers development and also covers the CTF, and it's an annual fee that you pay just for access in AltStore. Right. So now no users will have to pay this going forward. This is new customers, and no renewals will occur for previous customers. These two things, Epic mean business. Because they're also putting Fortnite on other stores as well. There's like more stores than just AltStore. As other stores are going to launch, they're going to put Fortnite there. Basically, it seems like they're doing everything they can to undermine Apple and increase the desire for side loading worldwide. Because all of the headlines that I've seen, which I understand why the headline is this way, like the one on The Verge, Fortnite is back on the iPhone.
Just not your iPhone.
Exactly. Unless you're in the European Union, that's not your iPhone. But people will want Fortnite back on their iPhone, especially they have timed this so well, Jason. I don't know how familiar you are with this, but
it's their Marvel season just started.
Huge
it was
Marvel
all
season.
timed.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they know what they're doing. They mean business.
They know what they're doing. They do. I mean, I don't particularly like Tim Sweeney and the way he goes about things, but I mean, and I think that some of the stunts that they pulled with Apple were counterproductive. But I appreciate their sticking with this, and this is the great experiment. We'll see where it leads, but I honestly don't know where it will lead. I think that they're just trying to continue putting pressure on them, and again, is it self-serving? Of course it is, but I do also think that they have turned their back on other revenue around the world on iPhone in order to make this point, and maybe they're playing a long game here, but I think they're also standing up for something that they believe. So good for them. I could make a catty remark about that they're taking a percentage for games that are in their store, because isn't it supposed to be about gatekeeping, et cetera, et cetera. But if you don't like it, you don't have to go on their store. You can go to a different store, because again, there's different marketplaces in the EU.
There's the Epic Game Store is quite complicated. There's a lot more to get into, but they are a better partner to their partners. Like they frequently fund games and then take a cut. So there's a different scenario going on there. But I mean, this is the thing. I don't think they said they don't believe Apple should take nothing, but I think what they said anyway.
Yeah,
you were talking about putting pressure and it making changes. Starting in iOS 18.1, Apple is going to be allowing developers access to the NFC chip and the benefits of the secure element. I don't know when this was changed from Enclave to Element, but Apple refers to it as the secure element now. So what is this going to mean? I'm going to tell you right now, this is quite complicated. I read 3 articles 4 times today. So there's a few things going on here. So financial institutions will be able to offer their own contactless payment options, as well as other contactless payments in stores, like a supermarket could have its own. I think Walmart, for example, you can pay with a QR code or something, and they would be able to basically have their own. But this will also be for keys, car keys, house keys, that kind of stuff, hotel keys, transit cards, like the Oyster card in London is just like an NFC card, but you can't have it in Apple Pay, but maybe they would do that. Corporate badges, student IDs, loyalty cards, event tickets. Apple say to incorporate this new solution in iPhone apps, developers will need to enter into a commercial agreement with Apple, request the NFC and SE entitlement, and pay the associated fees. Of course, there are fees. But I do like that there is you have to, not anyone can just do this. You have to go to them and arrange it, because you're really kind of going deep into the system for access to this. This is going to be available in iOS 18.1 in Australia, Brazil, Canada, Japan, New Zealand, the UK, and the US. Now, I want to read from Apple's developer document the very high level of how this works, because there's a bunch of things that developers will be able to have access to. All right. So, first, NFC transactions. Users of eligible iOS apps can initiate NFC transactions from within the app with compatible NFC terminals. So you can open up an app, go to a terminal, you can hold your phone on it, and you can double-click and pay. Default app settings. Users can choose any eligible app as their default contactless app, which will enable the app to support field detect and double-click features. These are, field detect is, the default contactless app automatically launches when a user presents their iPhone to a compatible NFC terminal and after user authentication. So for example, in transit here in the UK, if you put your iPhone on an Oyster card thing, it pops up, it automatically brings up Apple Pay, and then you can double-click. And then also double-click. The default contactless app automatically launches when the user double-clicks on the side button or the home button and does the authentication. So a user can choose for any app that is in the kind of NFC, given the NFC entitlement, to just replace Apple Pay if they want to do that.
Replace, I guess, wallet, right, is what it's replacing.
Yeah, what is the wallet? Yeah, wallet. Good point. There's also support for non-default apps. Eligible apps running in the foreground can prevent the system default contactless app from launching and interfering with the NFC transaction. So this is, I guess, if you were in your supermarket and your supermarket had its own thing, and you were in the supermarket's app and you held it up, it wouldn't bring up Apple Pay. Then it could bring up the NFC thing, but you don't have to make it as the default. This is really interesting, really weird, really complicated. I will be intrigued to see what actually this looks like when it launches. And I desperately hope it does not mean we're going to start seeing banks pulling out of Apple Pay because they want you to use theirs instead. That is what I worry about in seeing this.
Yes.
That like every bank is going to be like, great, now we're just going to do this. So my hope is, and what I think Apple's probably going to do, they're going to price these fees in such a way that it just means that you might as well do both. But I really hope this isn't the case, man.
So this is what I assume. I assume, and this is just because this is how Apple's been behaving, I assume that the associated commercial agreement and fees will be the equivalent of what Apple has done with other stuff, where they say, oh, you want to be outside of our aegis as the wallet app. Okay, as long as the reason you want to be outside is not to get around paying us, because you're still going to have to pay us, but you can build a separate thing and not be an Apple Wallet, which is competition in a sense, right? Which is a developer who wants to build something that doesn't make sense in Apple Wallet or is not supported by Apple Wallet could build it in their app and not worry about Apple Wallet. But Apple still has to approve that app. Apple still has to sign a commercial agreement with them. So is it really that different? I don't know. And it does. I agree with you. I am a little concerned as well. I mean, the advantage of having everything be in the wallet app is everything's in the wallet app and I don't have to worry about it. And if this is not the case, then that's less good.
But at the same time, I like the idea that I could open up an app and just do a bunch of NFC stuff in that app, like tickets or hotel keys or even like a badge to get into a building or something. Like that kind of stuff is good, but I worry about the financial institutions part of it and what might happen at Apple Pay.
I don't know.
So all of this, the reason I brought this up is like pushing, like all of this is similar to what Apple already announced they were doing for the EU with opening, but like they have way less information about that, so I'm not sure how exactly they overlap, but I think they overlap pretty close. But I think there are going to be some separate things that are going on, which is why they're kind of being very restrictive about the countries that this is going to act in. But this is like, again, the EU made them do something, so now Apple's doing it worldwide, and maybe it'll bring some good, maybe it'll bring some bad.
Yeah, we'll see.
Spotify is now able to show the prices of the various plans that they have available in their iOS app in the European Union as a result of Apple's legal battle with the European Commission, in which the $2 billion fine was proposed against them in March. As a result of this, something called the Music Streaming Services Entitlement was created. This appears to be able to provide a developer of a music streaming app who opts into this the ability to add one link out to the developer's website to explain how to purchase these plans. You cannot do any purchasing in the app itself without also opting into the new developer terms and paying the CTF. From Spotify's, what they're talking about, it doesn't look like they're actually putting this link in or talking about the link, but you can now go and see how much a Spotify plan costs, which is awesome. What a great.
Yeah, this is just think about this. Spotify has spent years in a legal battle with Apple for the right to list their prices and link to their website.
Kind of. They can't even link to the normal website. They can't link to the purchase plan. They can link to a place which explains how someone could potentially buy something. Imagine the money. The money that has gone into this for lawyers.
Just for something that, and this is the thing, and I know, we've talked about it. I know John Gruber's talked about it a lot. This is one of the most nettlesome things that Apple does, because this is like the biggest bit of rent-seeking behavior. And I just to say it again, making people aware of things that happen outside of an app and outside of Apple's control is not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And yet Apple treats it like, every link to the internet is a scary thing that you must be warned away from, and information needs to not be shared. And it's the difference between saying, look, buying it in the app using Apple system is super convenient, and so you should do that. But if you don't want to, you can also just go to the web, because we all do it. It's fine. And Apple doesn't want to do that. And they can say lots of reasons why, but the bottom line is they want all the money. That's it. That's the only reason. I can't believe that Spotify spent all this time and money for something as basic as telling their customers what the prices of their services are and linking to their website. Like, come on, what are we doing here?
And speaking of wanting all the money, I wanted to get your take on the Apple Patreon thing. We mentioned this very briefly.
Money,
yes.
Who wants all the money?
It's Apple.
That was not a jingle.
No.
That was us singing on a podcast.
It's just us singing. That's a different thing. That's a single.
Yeah.
So, just a quick disclosure about the thing. We both work with Memberful. Memberful is owned by Patreon. I just think that's worth mentioning. So
Relay FM, Incomparable, Six Colors are all Memberful plans.
Yeah, and they've also been sponsored on the shows before. We've had Memberful as a sponsor. So we mentioned this very briefly on the show last week because it broke last Monday, but it was too big a thing for us to really think about and digest. And I gave a lot of my own thoughts about this Unconnected last week, but I wanted to know your take. So essentially, Apple is requiring Patreon to give them a cut of all memberships that are started in the Patreon iOS app from November. This does not count any existing payments or memberships. So like if somebody signed up in the iOS app today, Apple's not going to get any money from that person. It is 30% of all iOS-only signups from November of this year onwards.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about this?
It's also, they used to have a thing where if you didn't post a thing during a span, you didn't get charged, and that is not possible with this scenario either.
Yes.
I don't like this. I think that there are a couple ways to look at this, and one is, what is Apple doing? Because I've heard there have definitely been threads about this. What is Apple's policy about having to offer in-app purchases? Because I've also heard from people who've developed apps where Apple said, no, this is based on buying something outside, and even if you don't tell anybody it exists, it doesn't matter. You need to also make it available for in-app purchase.
Apple's rules for the App Store is if you offer a purchase, you must also offer in-app purchase. So like if someone can buy your thing on the web and it's like a digital good, they want you to offer it also in your app and also offer an in-app purchase for it.
Yeah. It's just, and I think that's ridiculous. So it doesn't, there's a bunch of things going on here. First off, I don't actually do any Patreon in the in-app purchase. It makes me think, was John Gruber who said this? Somebody said they should just shut off their iOS app and use the web. I use the web for Patreon and it's fine. But
clearly it's important to their business, right? Like the iOS app must be important to Patreon, or they would have just gotten rid of it.
It lets creators put push notifications into iPhones. Like I get
there are actually like community stuff in it. Like people can have like group chats instead of like a Discord.
So things I don't like. I don't like Apple saying if you have an app, you have to offer in-app purchases. Especially since you have to offer in-app purchases and pretend that you don't know where else people can buy this thing because it's against the rules. That I think is just fundamentally not great. But I also think that this is Apple trying to insert itself in a product that already has a middleman. So it's trying to invalidate Patreon's business model, like it made it impossible for Amazon or Comixology for that matter, right, to sell in app.
Mm-hmm.
Because that means two middlemen. They're both taking their cut. It can't pencil out. It doesn't work that way, and so they can't do it. Not great. And the whole idea of the creators being taxed for this, like one of the problems is because Patreon rolls everything together into a single account and then pays creators. They have they're not eligible for the small business plan, even though almost all their creators are. So it's a 30% cut instead of 15%. So that's the top of it. It seems to be misguided in the sense that people creating art is not something that Apple should actually take a cut of, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think the optics, it makes Apple look bad, but I think also it doesn't really make a lot of sense for them to do it this way.
It doesn't pass the sniff test for logic, like in a bunch of ways.
Yeah. And I think also this is a great example. I mean, first off, it's Apple's one-size-fits-all approach here, which is Apple doesn't think about the creators at Patreon. Apple thinks about Patreon. Apple is focused on taking its cut from this company called Patreon that's making a lot of money. Apple wants its cut. Not thinking about the fact, at least not aggressively thinking about the fact that Patreon is actually a middleman, a facilitator for a bunch of individual independent creators.
Yeah, but you're just brainless. If you know what I mean. Like I know what you're saying, but that is like such. And I agree with you.
Oh yeah,
but it's a brainless thought.
This is what I'm saying. Is you're looking at it in this certain way because you've decided that that's how you're going to look at the world, even though this very clearly isn't that kind of thing. But they've decided, it's like, I'm sorry. And it's that same thing, right? Which is, I'm sorry, our hands are tied. These are the rules. It's like, you made the rules. You make the rules. Your hands are not tied. You made the rules. So what are you doing here? And in the end, just stepping back, what does it look like? It is Apple muscling into a whole bunch of independent creators who make a small amount of money on the internet and saying, hey, we want our money. And it's like, why do you want the money? Patreon's doing all the work. Patreon built our app for us. Patreon's doing the back end. We're cutting in Patreon. What has Apple given us? And Apple's response is, well, we built the platform that the Patreon app runs on. And it's like, well, okay.
Congratulations.
So why aren't you entitled to a portion of what Patreon takes from us?
Yeah.
Why are you entitled to 30% of what people are giving to me as an independent creator? It just looks bad. It doesn't pass the sniff test. You're absolutely right. And, again, this is actually an easy one. This is a great example of Apple playing by a playbook from when they were down on their luck and desperate for money, and now they're rich and they're still playing by that playbook. Mm-hmm. And it makes them look bad. It is, I would say it's probably as harmful. It's probably as bad a look as the hydraulic press ad was, but it's actually actual harm.
They're actually doing the thing that people were upset about that time. They're actually doing it. It is
Patreon creators in the hydraulic press now. Yeah, exactly.
Well, like that was just an interpretation before. I had a thought about this and like looking through Patreon's rules and it clarified something to me, which I feel like I'm gonna keep talking about now, as people aren't going to hit us a lot. Like Apple are perfectly happy with their customers paying more for digital goods than everybody else, because they have zero problem with you putting the 30% on top.
Yeah. And the argument is, if it's so easy to do an in-app purchase, then you pay extra for it. If it makes it super easy. Like, okay. Like, all right. I mean, I think that my frustration with Apple's in-app purchase thing is they don't want to compete. Yep. They want to hide and have this 30% and not compete, and maybe have to lower their take in order to make it. But like, as a platform owner who has built-in payment systems that are just right there in their APIs and everything like that, should Apple offer that and take a cut and say, look, we made it really easy for you. Just give us our cut, and it's all built in, and it's using their existing credit card, and you don't have to worry about it. Like, that's not an unreasonable proposition. It's all the other stuff that's been built around it, which is you can't tell people about the other things. You can't link to the other things. There are no other alternatives if you're in our store unless you're in the EU. This is your only choice. It's 30%. That's the total number. We have very specific rules about it, and you are covered under it, so everybody is going to be covered under it. That's where it all goes from being not an unreasonable argument about Apple's convenience, the convenience of in-app purchases, to being more like a racket.
Just bums me out, man.
Yep.
Just bumming me
This
out.
is the feelings part of the podcast where we say we're kind of tired of talking about all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because the bottom line is I didn't get into this and you didn't get into this to talk about legal policies and who gets cut of what in big business. We got into this for enthusiasm about the products and about what people can do with the products and how we use them and how other people use them to make their lives better and have fun and all of those things. And none of this is that. I think there's value in understanding Apple's business. But like this, it's the summer of fun. Summer of fun.
This year has reminded me of 2020.
It's just rough.
In summer of 2020, there was no break in the news. It's kept going for the whole summer.
Yes. Yeah.
This year, there has been no break in the news. The news has just kept happening. Now, the thing about this is, it's kind of in between a rock and a hard place, right? This is, I think, interesting stuff that is happening.
Yeah.
To Apple. We cover Apple. We talk about Apple. But it's also depressing. But I wouldn't want to just pretend it didn't exist, right? And we just carry on like it didn't exist. But I don't want to get lost in it either. So basically, what I've been I've been thinking of, I think once we get through this period, getting up to the iPhone, right? A couple of weeks for that. Potentially after the iPhone, I might readjust a little bit how much I'm putting in.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to ignore it. This Patreon thing, would have spoke about it, right? But maybe not the Spotify thing, maybe not the Fortnite thing if I was editing us down. But I want to complete the threads of the stuff we started talking about,
Yeah, I think we need to talk about it, but and lawyer up, the artwork is beautiful and all that. I think we're going to continue talking about it, but I do think that there's a point at which we have to say as the kind of curators of the content of the show that it's too much.
Yeah.
And we don't want to do it. And I can say from personal experience, Stephen Hackett and I did a podcast called Download. And the year plus that we did it was the year where every single week was a terrible Facebook story about how Facebook had done another thing to ruin people's privacy and change election results and lead to potential genocides. And it was one terrible story after another to the point where we added a segment called the Fuzzy Puppy Update because we were so depressed at the end of the segment.
Well, we have Rumor Roundup coming up next, and that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And the number one reason we stopped doing Download is because it was dispiriting to cover that terrible stuff all the time. It's not what we got into this to do. And we didn't want to do it anymore. And we have had the luxury of just saying, let's just stop this.
Yeah.
And we're not going to stop covering the stuff on Upgrade, but I do feel like at some point we're going to need to recalibrate a little bit because it's a lot. There's a lot going on.
Happen.
And
it's going to happen.
And we can't not talk about stuff that's Apple's doing that we don't agree with or we think is bad. And we have to talk about it. But there's so much of it right now, and there's a limit to what we can do.
Well, it's like I said last week, right? And I've been thinking about it a lot. I think I said it on this show. I don't remember if I said it on the show. I'm going to say it again now anyway.
Okay.
There's
do it.
And Federico had a version of this himself too, where he said the two apples. But for me, it's just that I'm so happy the products are good. Yeah, because I was talking about the Mac malaise time, right? I'm so happy the products are good right now.
Imagine if the butterfly keyboard was out there now.
Exactly. Imagine that, right? Then it would be I don't know what I would do. The products are good right now, and the software is good right now, by and large. But the products are good at least, and they're doing interesting stuff. So it at least gives some balance. And basically, it's just going forward, we're still going to talk about this stuff, but I think I'm going to start tapering some of these bits off a little bit, and just try and cover the biggest things. I don't want to do this every week at this But it's look, but I don't want to let them off, right? This Patreon thing, we would have spoke about this no matter what. This is important.
It's so unnecessary.
Yeah.
It's so unnecessary. And I'm going to tell you, having spent decades now understanding Apple's mindset, I'm sure the mindset here is essentially, Patreon hides behind their creators. but they're the one that's built a big business taking money from the creators. And we've let them sort of slide and not taken our cut, but they're taking advantage of us now, Patreon, the corporation, and we're not going to let them. We're going to put the screws to them. I guarantee you that's what they're thinking internally.
Yep.
And let me say, Patreon is not without fault here. Patreon has chosen a path that they want to go with their business that makes it more than maybe the initial plans of Patreon. Patreon made changes to the terms that creators are unhappy with.
Mm-hmm.
Patreon is not without fault here at all. And I do think that part of the reason Apple does this is that Apple perceives Patreon as being a business that is trying to make a lot of money from creators while skating by Apple and giving Apple its cut. That said, this is an own goal on Apple's part, because in the end, you make your policies and you could adjust them. And so the argument of like, well, but Apple had to do this because if they let Patreon slide, then somebody else is going to slide. The answer is no. Apple can make a new entitlement, a new system, a new business term. They can say, oh, if you're passing on something to an independent creator and you have a certain, like, they could build a whole little program around
They
it.
did it
Basically
for a different type of creator, the big Hollywood creators. They created reader apps for them.
Yeah. So they could do it if they wanted. And maybe they will. Maybe this is phase one. But the fact is, like, they should not have done this just unilaterally like this. It makes them look really bad. And the fact that I think the most galling thing to me is that it's the 30%, even though these are all, so they don't even get the discount. They don't even get the half off. Even though each individual creator probably deserves it, because Patreon doesn't as a whole. And so they're going to put the screws to Patreon there. I do think in the end, that's probably what's going on here, is Apple views Patreon as a competitor or as a business partner that is not giving Apple its fair share. I don't think they're thinking about the creators at all, which is obvious, because if you thought about it, you wouldn't do this.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
This episode is brought to you by Delete Me. Have you ever wondered how much of your personal data exists on the internet? Stuff that you don't know about, but stuff that you don't want people knowing about? It's uncomfortable to think about your information being out there, especially since there are a whole industry of data brokers who make their business selling people's data. But the good part is we have the right to stay private and protect our privacy. But how would you know who the data brokers are to go and ask them to remove your information from them? This is where Delete Me comes in. Delete Me is a subscription service that removes your personal information from the largest people search databases on the web. They know who they are, and they chase them down. In the process, help preventing potential ID theft, doxing, and phishing scams. You can sign up and provide Delete Me with exactly what information you want deleted, and their experts take it from there. Delete Me sends you regular personalized privacy reports showing what information they found, where they found it, and what they removed. And this isn't just a one-time service. Delete Me is always working for you, constantly monitoring and removing the personal information you don't want on the internet. I was talking with someone a couple of days ago, and I was actually basically giving them the ad for Delete Me because I love this service. I love the reports that I get, which tell me exactly what information has been removed from where, what process they are in removing my information from the brokers that I want. But my favorite thing is that they have so many fields of data that you can provide them, but you only need to give them what you want removed. Like maybe you have a corporate email address that you want to be available online because you want people to find you so they can contact you for work. Just don't give them that email address as the information that you want removed. But maybe your personal information is out there, your personal email address. You give that to Delete Me, and they'll make sure that it's taken away from all these data brokers. It's an amazing service. I could not recommend it higher. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now with a special discount for listeners of this show. You can get 20% off your Delete Me plan. You go to joindeleteme.com/upgrade20 and use the promo code upgrade20 at checkout. The only way to get that 20% off is to go to this URL. That is joindeleteme.com/upgrade20 and use the promo code upgrade20 at checkout. I'm going to give you that one last time. joindeleteme.com/upgrade20, promo code upgrade20. Thanks to Delete Me for their support of this show and Relay FM. Rumor Roundup time, partner.
Yeehaw.
Your favorite topic. Mark Gurman has published another report about his tabletop robot.
Robot or not. Robot or not.
Robot.
or not.
You can check out Robot or Not and The Incomparable if you have no idea
Yeah, that's
what
right.
that
All
is.
those theme songs we sang by Lex Friedman, maker of Upgrade Jingles.
Indeed. That's what
Actually,
he's
so there-
best known for.
Oh man, the jingles.
I'll put a link in the show notes to Robot or Not. So, Mark Gurman has posted a quite lengthy report about Apple's robotics plans. So, the first thing is a product that essentially combines the look of an iPad on a robotic limb. Yes, it's going to look like the iMac G4.
So, I'm gonna stop you here.
Why?
I'm gonna stop you here because I'm just gonna say it again. A kitchen speaker with a base and an arm and a screen that rotates or goes up and down or whatever is not a robot. It's not a robot.
Are you allowed to give that distinction?
Yes.
Okay.
I
on
allow
this
it.
show,
I allow it.
you say
It's
what
not
the
a robot.
robots are.
Well, you want me to? I can cite. We had this question. We had this question for John Siracusa, and
Okay.
he said if it just sits on a counter and moves around within itself and is not like skittering around and doing stuff on the counter, it is not a robot. It is moving automatically, but it is not a robot. And look, we love Mark Gurman. He gets good scoops. He's very good at scooping. His insistence on calling this thing a robot is killing me. It's like a HomePod version of the Amazon show, Echo Show, right?
Mhm.
It's a kitchen speaker that does FaceTime, and apparently it will move the screen around, which some other things also do. I think the Facebook one does it. Also not a robot. It's just not a robot. But he's packed it in this narrative of like Apple has a lot of robotic things going on. And there are other robotics things that he talks about in
maybe
here,
more
which make
robot
me roll
stuff.
my eyes because I don't think that they're going to be anything we see anytime soon, if ever, and probably never. Whereas this seems like it's a real product. But to say that like to call it an iPad on a robotic limb, it feels like this is the very definition of the parable of the blind man and the elephant, where it's like you're describing a product that we can all pretty much guess, and I would never describe it as an iPad on a robotic limb. I would call it a kitchen speaker on an arm.
It's more
Come on.
more intriguing to call it a robot, though, right?
Well, this is what that's why it's narrative building anyway.
Yeah.
It's not a robot. It's a HomePod with a screen that can move it around, like can pivot or something. It's not like I'll just say, unless it can move around on my countertop, it is not a robot.
Quote, the
That's it.
device is envisioned as a smart home command center, video conferencing machine, and remote-controlled home security tool. Gurman says that Apple now has several hundred employees working on the project. It is expected that there could be a debut of it in 2026 or 2027 at around $1,000. And there has been internal concern about the price of such a device and if it would attract a market, but Tim Cook and John Turnus are in favor of this project, which has now become, quote, the sole responsibility of Kevin Lynch.
Okay.
Here's a longer quote. The idea is for the tabletop product, doesn't call it a robot there, the tabletop product to be primarily controlled using the Siri digital assistant and upcoming features in Apple Intelligence. The device could respond to commands such as look at me by repositioning the screen to focus on the person saying the words, say during a video call. It could also understand different voices and adjust its focus accordingly. Current models in testing run a customized version of iPadOS.
Okay, first off, that's describing Center Stage, except you have to tell it to do it. And I get the idea that Center Stage has limitations, and if you can actually move the camera around, it's better. Although, again, what a weird example to say, look at me, when, like, during a video call, right? Like, well, during a video call, it should just look at you. Why? I mean, I'm now
I don't
yelling
think this
commands
is
at my
just
robot.
for video calls, though, right? Like me and you are in the kitchen, and I want the weather, and the robot's pointing you, and I'm like, "Hey, give me the weather."
It's
and
not
it
a
spins
robot,
around.
but yes, you say, "Look at me," because I want to see the weather. I get it.
HomePod Robo.
This feels very much like somebody is describing it and it's being obfuscated and simplified, and it sounds much more complicated than it actually is. We know all the parts that Apple has for this thing. $1,000 is a lot of money for a device like this. which doesn't mean that Apple won't do it at that price. But I would say one of my concerns about modern Apple is that they over-engineer their products. Not that they're expensive, because Apple products are always expensive, but that they overshoot and over-engineer their products. And that if the only way to build a combination smart home command center video conferencing machine and remote controlled home security tool that moves around and responds to your voice commands is by building this amazing thing that costs $1,000, maybe
Let's
not.
just not do the
Maybe
arm. How about
not.
that? Just get rid of the arm, and it's $500.
Have a little base that turns.
Don't even do that.
base
Don't even
that
have it move.
turns.
It doesn't need to move. It doesn't need to move.
Well, that's really not a robot then. I agree.
But it doesn't, right?
agree.
Like it
Just
doesn't
because
need
you
to
can,
move.
It doesn't. In fact, you could put very clever sensors on it. If you wanted to have a 360 view, you could put a camera on the front and a camera on the back.
Yeah.
And then it could see everywhere.
But it doesn't have to
You
move.
couldn't tell it to look at you, though. It doesn't have to move. It doesn't have to move. And sometimes I wonder if what Apple is doing with some of these products is they're saying, well, there's already those products in the market, so we can't come in at that level.
We have to make it better.
We got to make it better. But then they make it $1,000. It's like, well, no, make it good and not full of ads and slow and bad like what Amazon and Google have.
But also,
and then bring it in at $500.
Make a HomePod
or $750.
Put a screen on it, and it can move on a base, right?
Yeah.
Like that, and that could be
Great.
600, say, but it's not 1,000.
Yeah.
Look, this product
Feels very Vision Pro to me, where it's
Yes.
overdone, just over-egged.
This product
there's too much in here.
is a product I want, right? Like
Yes.
I do want this, and so like,
Yes, this is that enthusiasm we were
Yeah.
talking about in the last segment. I'm very excited about
I
Apple
want it.
using all of the tech that it's already got that we all know
Yep.
to build a product that is like a home speaker that could go in the kitchen, that's got a screen that I can control
It's
and
got
that
all my
ties
apps
into
on
Apple's
it,
ecosystem.
right? Like it's got
Sold.
my calendar on it. When I ask for
Sold.
my
I will
calendar,
buy
it shows
this.
me my calendar. Yeah, I want it, but they're going to have to tell a real good story, which I think they could, but they're going to have to tell a real good story for why this needs to be on a robotic arm and cost $1,000, right? Like, maybe they can do it, and maybe, hey, just maybe, it's so beautiful that you're happy to put it in your kitchen.
Sure.
You're happy to put it in your living room, right? Because, and it's $1,000 because this thing is like,
Maybe it's too beautiful. You're like, no, it can't be in my kitchen. It's too beautiful.
too
I
beautiful.
can't even bear to look at it.
Because
It's so beautiful.
my Amazon Echo Show is an ugly duck.
It's
Right?
My Google Home
Ugly
is
ducklings.
it's not great.
And so maybe this will be
It's
really
bad.
nice, and so like that, that helps to the thing. But still, $1,000 on a robotic arm is a lot. It's a lot.
It's a
It's
lot.
a lot. It's a lot.
It's
And
a
again,
lot.
look, it's what we always say with these things. We have so many details we don't have, but it's on the face
Yeah.
of it. That's a lot. And to remember, the HomePod. How much was the HomePod? Was that $500 when it came around the first time?
Something like that. Yeah. I
That
think
was
so.
too much, right? But
too
I
much.
bought 2 of those, and I prefer one of these.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm the problem. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It just and maybe at
$349
$1,000 they'll-
okay, but still 2 of those
Okay,
for
it's-
$349.
It seemed like $1,000, but it was $349. But this is the thing. At $1,000, I look at it and I say, whatever we're doing here, it's too much. And that's the problem I've got is like, what's going on inside Apple that you make these decisions and you're like, oh no, $3,500 headset, that's a good idea. And $1,000 kitchen speaker thing. And it's like, well, yeah, but it'll be so amazing. It's like, yeah, what would the $700 one look like?
Yeah.
We'd have to take off the legs and the wheels that make it roll around on your countertop. Oh, well, do that because then it's not a robot.
I think you made a very good point about they start with we want to do this thing. How do we make it different?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think
Right.
that's a problem when
We
you
got
do
to
that.
blow away what Amazon and Google have done by taking it like it'll be next level in so many different ways. Because I do think that there's a pride thing where even though, again, Apple, they're bad. The Amazon product, the Google product, they're bad. They're not up to your standards. It's the equivalent of Apple TV versus the stuff that's on a TV
Mhm.
or a Roku or whatever. Yours is better. I mean, asterisk, but it is better.
No, it's
and the
better.
hardware is
It's
really nice. And you charge a lot for it. And like
The remote
it's found
is great.
an
The
found an
TV
audience.
app is great. Like, it's all good,
Okay.
I think.
So So Joe Rosensteel's in the chat room. Don't anger him.
No.
Anyway,
I'm willing to die on this cross. Like I think
Well, look,
Apple TV is awesome. I love it.
having used other set-top box things, it's the best. It's the best.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It's got lots of issues, but it's still the best. Okay, but this is my point. Google and Amazon stuff for this category are awful. They're awful. They're not close to Apple standards. But Apple seems to want to. Well, but we got to blow them away. They don't want the glory of entering a category with a product that's kind of like what the ones that are already there, but more expensive and better. And instead, it's like they want to dunk on them. And like dunking on them is not a bad thing, but dunking on them for 5 times the price of them where nobody's going to buy it is a bad thing. So that's the restraint I would like to see. If you want to make Apple Tabletop Home Robot Pro and Apple Tabletop Home Not a Robot and sell them both, that's great. But you end up in a HomePod situation where you do the HomePod and it goes over like a lead balloon, and then they're like, oh, HomePod Mini, and it's like, oh yeah, people kind of like that. Right. Maybe that should have been your first product. That's what I'm saying here is I'm getting real HomePod vibes, real Vision Pro vibes, where it's like you're making some decisions to blow away the competition when your basic thing would blow away the competition. So maybe make that.
Apparently, Apple also has a team now that are exploring other robotic devices, including a humanoid robot.
The actual
call that
robots.
one a robot, wouldn't you?
Actual robots.
This team is being run by a robotics expert by the names of Hans Wolfram Tapiner. Tapiner. I will say this person sounds like a robotics expert. That is
First
the name
against the wall
of someone
when the
who
robot
knows
revolution happens.
Robots. Hans Wolfram Tapiner. That person, I don't know anything about them, but I know they're a robots expert, and I believe it. Tapiner's team consists of 100 engineers who departed the car project. Mm-hmm. They're going from one to the other, you know?
Look, I think that here's what I think about this. I like the idea that Apple has people who are experts at this stuff who are just messing around trying to figure stuff out. That's fine. It doesn't need to be a product. It could lead to a product. It could accidentally lead to a product. We'll see. I'm not sure if this is in Apple's wheelhouse, but sure, why not? Why not investigate that and experience it? And if Apple eventually comes up with a little robot that can vacuum and mop and sweep and I don't know what, fold your laundry or whatever, like, great, that'll be amazing. But it seems unlikely to me that any of that will actually happen.
Mark Gurman, stand by, everybody. Mark Gurman is also reporting that Apple continues to explore a larger iMac.
Oh, I hope they find
again.
it. It's what's out there. What's across the horizon? Could there be a larger iMac
They're
somewhere
looking
out there?
for
Let's
it. They're
explore.
out there. They're still developing.
It's like
the
a
idea.
Bigfoot, though. It's like there are pictures that suggest there might be a larger iMac. But
I don't want
we
it
can't
anymore.
verify them.
I don't want it anymore.
Okay.
All right. You told me I couldn't have it. Now I don't want it. Don't bring it. Don't do it.
Honestly, I want them to do a larger display.
Yes. Give me a big
that
display.
a Mac Studio, a laptop, a Mac Mini could be attached to.
I want a big display that is ProMotion. That's what I want. Because I have my 14-inch MacBook Pro that I record on here hooked up to an LG display. Because, whatever. But, even if I hooked up to a studio display, it's not getting everything that computer can do. That computer can do ProMotion, and I want that.
Yes.
Give me that in a display, please.
Yeah, that's fair.
As well as this, Mark is reporting that the next generation of AirPods could get active noise cancellation. So, currently, you can buy 2 sets of products called AirPods. AirPods 2, which were the long stem ones, and AirPods 3, which was redesigned to be closer to AirPods Pro in packaging and its format. But they don't go in your ears, right? They just don't go directly in, the rubber tips.
Mm-hmm.
So, this year, Apple is looking to redesign, repackage these, right? So, there'll be 2 new sets of AirPods called the AirPods. They'll be like AirPods 4, basically. And they may name them slightly different. So, but what they will do is create a new entry-level product that retains the features of the current AirPods 3. And AirPods 2, right? So, it retains those features. and then add in a new mid-tier AirPods product that gets noise cancellation, but not all the other features of the AirPods Pro, both would get USB-C cases.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what these will actually look like. Like, are they going to redesign AirPods 2 to be like shorter stem, maybe? And then also, is the AirPods 3, I guess it has to have in-ear silicon tips, right? Like, how else can you do noise cancellation? You have to have a seal, don't you?
I don't know. No, I mean, to do a good one, yeah, because otherwise the sound gets in.
Because then what's the point? So it looks like what they're going to do is create a regular AirPods set, and I feel bad for the people who AirPods 3 don't fit in their ears, because maybe there won't be any more AirPods that will fit in their ears. Then create a active noise cancellation cheaper version, and then AirPods Pro. I don't know what it will get. Like I wonder. I assume
get that infrared camera.
I guess, but that's not this year. Like there won't be a new AirPods Pro this year. That will be next year at the earliest, Mark says. So, I mean, I would assume that as well as noise cancellation, it will also get transparency mode. I mean, it doesn't say that, but I would assume that you would get that. Intriguing. I mean, this is the iPad and iPad Pro of it all, right? Like this is what they do. The features roll down the line.
Yeah, I think they've got. One question is, it's like, is it a mid-tier or is it essentially an extension of what we have now, where we essentially have a low-end AirPod and a mid-tier AirPod, and that will these be like? In other words, is AirPods 2 replaced by something that is also at a similar price, right? That is sort of very limited in features, but just revised to be a little more modern. Mm-hmm. And that AirPods 3 gets replaced with something that is really just kind of in the middle there, so that they've got a good, better, best kind of scenario with the AirPods Pro on top. AirPods Air. No, don't call it that. It's a bad idea. AirPods.
And say put the Air in AirPods in all caps, just to let you know that it's the little one. So yeah, interesting. I will be intrigued to see where this goes, and I know it's going to upset some people because people get they're very specific. Like some people, AirPods 3 don't fit in their ears, and some people don't want in-ear silicon. I will just say, people that have, I didn't want to do in-ear silicon. I've never liked that before, but I like AirPods. They work for me. The next iPhone Pro. We've been talking about a bronze color. Is it actually going to be brown, though? So there is an image that has come out of potentially what the next iPhone lineup's going to look like from Sonny Dixon, who has had a pretty good track record with this stuff in the past. And the bronze color iPhone Pro, it looks very Microsoft Zune-y. It's very brown looking in this image.
Yeah, I would caution people because based on lighting and cameras, colors can really be different than reality. It does look really brown in here, although there is that one thing that suggested it's like desert titanium or something.
One of the names is suggested is desert titanium, which I think is a translation error, but nevertheless.
Yeah, well, it's iPhone math, okay? Forget about it. Forget it. It's iPhone math. That's a reference. What I would say is, worst case scenario, Zune phone.
Yeah.
Best case scenario, tan phone.
Yeah.
It's not a great best case scenario.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So I was intrigued about bronze, but like now I'm like, I don't know. Like, was this worth replacing blue?
No, as a owner of a blue titanium phone, no.
But the black one looks nice though, in this image.
Of course it does.
The black one looks good. Something that I'd forgotten about, but I saw in another article about this, which was the rumor that they were going to move from matte rails back to polished again, and it definitely looks like that in this image. And I don't know how I feel about that, because I actually quite like the matte texture on the side of the current titanium one, and I don't know if I want to go back to shiny again. I think that's too soon to go straight back. I understand the idea, you change things up so they're like, you're setting your own trends and stuff, but I think 1 year of the matte rails may not have been long enough to go straight back to shiny again. But yeah, I mean, looking at this lineup, I'm probably going to stick with natural titanium.
I
'cause I like
bought
that.
blue,
Yeah.
and then at the podcastathon last year, I saw you guys had your natural titanium models, and I thought about returning the blue, and in the end, I decided the blue is fine. I like the blue, and I don't want to go through the trouble of returning my phone and getting a new phone. That said, natural titanium looks real good, and
It's a
I
great
might go
looking
with
phone.
that next time. We'll
I'll,
see.
I'll probably stick with it. Like that, I don't think I'm going to change it because I actually do kind of like it. I want to just say, while we're talking about the iPhone, real quick.
Yeah,
These things,
it's getting close.
these things are made of really strong glass. I have dropped. You've been in my house. I have concrete
I've
floors
been in
and
your house.
downstairs. I dropped my phone twice in the last week because I had like shorts that had. I was wearing some shorts that didn't have very deep pockets, so it kept falling out my pocket. I have dropped my phone twice hard onto the concrete. Perfectly fine. These phones are strong now. I know that they break. But like in years, going back into the past, I don't know how long, my phone would have been absolutely done.
Yeah.
Like
I've had
obliterated by this fall.
a couple little drops here and there where I thought, oh, and it's not, nothing is
Like
happened.
it has hit hard. I had one that hit directly onto the front, and then one that hit onto the side, and then the front, and they made bad noises. It was the kind of noise where Adina was like, "Oh no!" when she heard it, right? Because she knew what it was. And
Yeah.
no, absolutely fine, not a mark on it. So
Beautiful.
these phones are strong. The investments that they've made in glass, like I know that they have that deal with Corning, right? To make strong glass, stronger glass. It's doing the business. I gotta say,
Mike,
I'm happy with it.
I've got a statement that I want you to think about here, which
All
is
right.
you've got to have deep pockets if you'll use an iPhone without a case. Huh?
Bravo. No, I'm really. I
Literally.
think that's incredible.
And figuratively.
You should be proud of that one. Genuinely.
Thank you. I'm
that was
putting it
really
on the Hall of Fame, putting it on the board.
Yes.
Congratulations to me,
let's raise
everybody.
your
We did it.
jersey. He's gonna retire now. We're done.
Stand up for the
Congratulations.
champions. Yes.
Wow. That's so good, Jason. You can tell
Yeah,
you're a
deep
writer.
pockets.
You know.
Yeah, the shallow pockets. That was your
shallow
problem.
pocket. That was my problem.
Because then, you got it, because you'll have to shell out for it. Anyway, I'm not going to explain.
Don't keep doing it because
Nope.
we're gonna ruin it.
Yep.
This episode is brought to you by KRCS, one of the oldest around of the Apple premium resellers and your one-stop shop for all things Apple in the UK. For our UK listeners, right now at KRCS, you can get 0% interest on any Mac over £1,000 for 12 months. This means you can buy the latest MacBook Air M3 for just £76 per month. And you can make your Mac truly yours and have the exact specification you want with pricing that you're not going to find anywhere else. Or choose from popular models in stock. As long as it's over £1,000, then it will qualify for 12 months interest-free credit. With free next working day delivery on in-stock items ordered before 3 p.m., there's never been a better time to get a Mac at KRCS, your local Apple experts. You can get more information at krcs.co.uk/podcast or click the link in the show notes. 18 plus only, subject to approval, terms and conditions apply. Please spend responsibly. Borrowing beyond your means could seriously affect your financial status. Ensure you can afford to make your repayments on time by the due date. Once again, go now to krcs.co.uk/podcast and get free next working day delivery on in-stock items ordered before 3 p.m. Our thanks to KRCS for the support of this show and all of Relay. And it's time for some Ask Upgrade questions. First question comes in from Stephen, not that one, who asks, Jason, what was better in the 90s, Mac user or Macworld?
Oh, Mac user.
Oh.
I was a Mac user reader, and that's why I wanted to work there. And then I worked there, and we were the upstart. We were a little less formal. We had more fun. And then they merged us together with Macworld, and most of the Macworld people left, and most of the Mac user people stayed, and most of the people you see out there writing about tech or working at Apple or whatever now are almost entirely people who worked at Mac user and not who worked at Macworld. And that was the big surprise I had, was that Macworld was much. Again, I don't want to say that everybody was like this, but so generalizing is bad. But I felt like most of the people on the Macworld staff were happy to be in the magazine business, and most of the people on the Mac user staff were excited to write about Macs. And I think it showed. I think Macworld was very serious and professional, and Mac User was wackier and had more fun and had Chris Breen and Andy Anako and Bob Levitas, and and I was a fan. That was the one that I read, and so we tried when we went to Macworld. We tried to kind of make it more like we wanted it to be, and just the effect of everybody from Macworld leaving, and most of the Mac User people who went over there staying, and then turnover, and eventually me being put in charge. Like, Macworld ended up in a very different place in the 2000s than it was in the 90s, but in the 90s, yeah, Mac User was my thing.
Peter wrote in to ask, I'm just wondering if the bigger icons on iOS and iPadOS remove the silly blue dots after you've updated an app. I think Peter is very anti-blue dot. I tried this out today to check for Peter, and currently I will say yes, it does. So I was on my iPad and I updated some apps, and I switched the icons to big, and they went, and the dots weren't there because the names aren't there, so there's nowhere to put the dot. However, when I then switched my icons back from big to small, the dots were gone, even from my test flight apps. So who could tell? Who could tell? Because that's not supposed to happen. But currently, yeah, it does get rid of them, and I would put a bet on it will actually get rid of them. So there you go. I don't know if I need to know that my apps have been updated. Like I don't think I need to know that. But there you go. James asked a question, and Jason, you're not going to like framing this question, I can tell you that, because I don't like the framing this question either, but it's an interesting question. James asks, why does Craig Federighi seem to get a pass from Apple commentators? See, this is the framing. I don't like being like everyone being lumped in together. Like it's one.
I called him out on a podcast recently, by the way. So but continue.
People are quick to directly excoriate. That's an interesting word.
Good word.
Tim Cook for issues with regulation, services revenue, and the China supply chain, or Phil Schiller for App Store rules. But for all of the complaints about Apple's software, paternalism, quality, release cadence, no one seems to bring up the SVP of software engineering who's actually in charge of these things. Can it really be the hair?
Well, first off, you mentioned Tim Cook and Phil Schiller. Like, Tim Cook's the boss. It stops with him. Mm-hmm. And Phil Schiller, he's been there longer than anybody, and he's kind of the boss when it comes to some of the stuff that is in his purview. Mm-hmm. So that's why they get brought up. Even then, we don't know the true dynamics of it. We don't. Mm-hmm. That's the thing about making anything personal at Apple, is you don't actually know the real dynamics going on. That said, I don't know whether it was on this podcast or MacBreak Weekly. I mean, I do lots of podcasts, people, but I have absolutely, in the last week or two, mentioned Craig Federighi. I think about the permissions thing, but I think the reason, to answer this question directly, Craig seems to get a light touch from Apple commentators, in part because he feels like he's one of us.
He's personable.
He's a friendly guy. He's nerdy. He understands about software development. There's so many things as a character on, in interviews and in Apple events, and it's lighthearted. And we remember when he did his first demo and he was shaking because he was so nervous, and he feels like one of us. So that's my answer. But I will say this. Absolutely, a lot of these issues about Apple's software system and the missteps they make in terms of their software development can be laid at the foot of Craig Federighi. CFed.
There you go.
CFed himself, our buddy, our guy with the hair. Craig, the buck doesn't stop with Craig. There are a lot of SVPs at Apple, but he's in charge of the software. If we think that Apple software quality is bad, or that they have misguided priorities, or that the security and privacy people are bullying the user experience people and the user experience failed, ultimately, while we can't know who's responsible, and that's why you should never make it personal, I do know that ultimately Craig is responsible. And I think a lot of people think, well, he's so likable, and he's got to be fighting for what's right on the inside. And, he seems like a nice guy. I think that's all true. I think it would be fair to say, is he a good leader of a giant software group or not? I don't know. I don't know. I haven't heard from anybody at Apple about it. Maybe. I don't know if he's just because he's a nice guy and we like him and he seems like one of us, does that make him flawless? It does not. Is it the case that Craig Federighi is fighting the good fight every day, but that there's some stuff that he just can't win on? Sure. Could it also be true that Craig Federighi is letting things go that he shouldn't and not standing up for things, and as a result, the processes are not as clean and good as they should be? Could also be true. This I don't know. But I will agree with James that Craig doesn't deserve a pass, even though we like him. That ultimately we can't know, unless somebody wants to tell us, the details of the inner workings of Apple. You can never say, oh, this thing happened that I don't like. Who was at fault? Very hard to say, right? There's huge organizational dynamics at play here. But ultimately, yeah, he's the guy in charge of software. And if software is messing things up, he's the guy we got to question. I mean, not that we can talk to him, other than maybe at the talk show, John Gruber can ask him a question that Greg Joswiak reaches out and bats out of the air before it can reach him. But other than that, I mean, yeah, I think that's true. It's just a lot. He's one of many SVPs, and so it's harder to make that statement than it is for something like Tim Cook, who's the boss, or Phil Schiller, who's been there for a million years and very clearly has had stuff just sort of delegated to him that he rules over, and that's it. So that's kind of my answer. I don't think it's the hair, though. If I had to do armchair psychology, I would say it's because he's the most like us. He's like our wish fulfillment character at Apple a little bit. And as a result, it's very hard to criticize Craig. He seems so nice. And like one of us, I seem to understand him. And we know that like they send people over to his house when there are bugs, right? Like that's all sweet. But like at the end of the day, if Apple's messing up at software, he's the boss.
I don't know if I do a good job of this. I know how I feel, and so maybe, I know how it makes me feel, so I hope I do. I try my best to never try and ascribe anything to an individual, because I don't know.
Don't get personal.
There's no point, right? Because I don't know who's
yes.
making the decision.
Yeah.
Like, just because you're the boss doesn't really... Sometimes you have to make a decision even though you don't agree with it because everybody in your organization is asking for it, but it doesn't mean you agree with it. Like,
yeah,
and also,
at a certain level, you got to wear it, though. I'm like, if Tim Cook makes a decision,
Sure.
he could say that he doesn't like it, but he made it, and he's the CEO, so he has to take it.
You also can't say that he doesn't like it. Like, you can't say that because otherwise...
Because you don't know. It's true. That's why you should never get personal.
No, I mean, like, even if he doesn't like a decision that he makes, he can't say he doesn't like it, but he has to just take it.
Of course.
Just do it because, like,
but he's still the CEO, so in the end... He's
sometimes
still the CEO.
but anyway, I just, for me, like, I would never try and ascribe blame to someone for something. Like, I mean,
yes.
Apple is what Apple is. Do I think that, like, the services stuff is, like, Tim Cook's fault? I don't know that. Like,
yeah, or Eddie Q's fault for that matter, right?
Or anybody's. Like, but they just are where they are. Like,
this is
why
I always say the extreme example of this that I really don't like, but it's a spectrum, is people say this person should be fired, right?
Yes.
First off, talking about somebody's livelihood is really, it makes me very uncomfortable.
It's gross.
Yes. Second, you don't know. You don't know. Like unless you literally have been working with these people inside Apple for years and they can say to me, oh yeah, he should have been fired years ago, whoever it was. Yeah, she should get out of there because it's a bad fit. She got promoted above her level. Whoever it is, one of these people inside Apple. Unless you're inside there, you don't get to say, oh, well, the thing is about Craig is they should fire him because I had a bug in the beta. And people say that kind of stuff. And it's like, you don't know. Like, I imagine the pressure on Craig Federighi to run that organization is enormous. And I imagine that there are very difficult decisions he has to make. I'm reminded of... something Obama said, which was like, what is it like being president that surprised you? And he said, they don't come to me with the 98% decisions or the 70-30 decisions. They come to me with 49-51, or really they come to me with 50-50. Like, if it's a decision that's easy, it never even gets to the president. Only the very, very hard decisions where there's no good answer get to the president's desk, right? That's sort of the truth of being a leader in general. But I always remember him saying that because, like, Craig Federighi, I'm sure that he has all sorts of forces pushing him left and right, and there's the politics, and there's people at different at his level who are like, we need this thing, like, because he's got John Gianandrea who's in charge of AI. That's software, but it's also his own fiefdom and not Craig's group. And how do they interact? Like, so very hard to say, oh, this thing happened and it's Craig, because, like, we don't know. Maybe he navigated it better than anyone else could possibly have done in difficult circumstances. Or Alternately, maybe he totally messed it up, but we don't know. We just don't know. And that's why you should never make it personal. And while I can say, like I said, I do believe that I can say something's going on in software. Craig Federighi is in charge of software. What's going on, Craig? I'm not going to say Craig Federighi should be fired, right? Craig, go fire him because like you can't, because you don't know. It's way more complicated than that. And like, again, I do believe the buck stops here. If we talk about Tim Cook and the Tim Cook era, it represents, he's been presiding over it for a decade. This is the direction Apple's going in. There is a nuanced debate to happen there, but also as the CEO, I would argue like he's a big boy. He's the man in charge. He has to own it regardless. But even then I wouldn't make it personal, because you're right that like, there are lots of things I think Tim Cook does as the CEO of Apple that he's uneasy about, but he feels that he has to because that's the job.
Like when he stood next to Donald Trump in a Mac Pro factory sometime and just said, "Oh, he did this," you know.
Yeah. No, I mean, he gets the wins where he can, and he does the other things. Yes, I'm pretty sure Tim Cook didn't want to go to the Mac Pro factory with Donald Trump, but he was the president of the United States and he wanted to do it. And they're like, okay, we are going to do this. It makes sense for Apple. I'm sure he was uneasy about it sitting next to him at that thing. But again, he's the CEO of Apple. He's got to do a whole bunch of stuff that makes himself uneasy. And then he's got the places where he says, oh, look at our environmental record. We're going to take the win over here. And that's just, it's a hard job. It's easy to throw stones from the outside. And we can be critical of Apple as a company because they make bad decisions. We've talked about them in this episode, but very hard to say it's that person there, because it's just not that easy. Even though it would feel so good if it was that easy, but it's just not that easy.
And Noah asks, now that we're in the summer of fun, what is your go-to music, album, or playlist for the summer while testing out the betas? Noah specifically asks, Mike, I remember a few years ago your album of choice was Maggie Rogers' Surrender. Are you enjoying her album this year, Don't Forget Me? Now, let me tell you real quick. We'll take a quick Maggie Rogers aside, Jason, and we'll ask if you have a different thing. I was really apprehensive of Maggie Rogers' third album, Don't Forget Me, because I just didn't think it was possible she could do it again. Because her first two albums are just absolutely perfect albums.
They're great.
And she did it again. Don't Forget Me isn't just incredible. As a body of work across 3 albums, it is hard to find. I struggle to find a comparable artist where, like, of all the artists that I love, that I consider of my favorites, to have 3 albums in a row and they're all absolutely fantastic. I mean, she's operating at a different level. I love that album.
That new album has grown on me. First time I heard it, it left me kind of cold, but it has grown on me over time, and I like it a lot better. Now, by the way, if you're wondering where an artist of the caliber of Maggie Rogers might play when she's in London,
yep,
she's got 2 dates, September 4th and 5th. You can go see her at London's storied Hackney Empire.
Where all the best perform.
Only the best, and also every Taskmaster contestant, but also Maggie Rogers.
It's wild. It is wild. Yeah, she's doing that. They were like, I think it was one of those ones where, like, if you buy a pre-sale album, you could get a code, and they're like intimate dates that she's anyway. But yeah, like I would just say on that album, like So Sick of Dreaming, The Kill, and Don't Forget Me, they're just those songs
stuff.
are just so good. So good.
So I'll the summer album that people should listen to get in the vibe of the summer of fun is, of course, Exotic Themes for the Silver Screen by Michael Giacchino. We mentioned it on a previous episode. That's where Michael Giacchino, the composer, took a bunch of his famous movie themes and turned them all into essentially summer of fun music. It's pretty great. I also recommend The Best of You 3. It is an amazing playlist that Apple Music made for me.
It's in the show notes.
Man, just get on that. Woo! Yeah. I don't have one thing that I listen to for betas or anything in the summer. My music is just, I've got a bunch of different playlists.
Do you have anything new this year, though, that you've really been enjoying?
I don't know. Been listening to a lot of Caroline Polachek, who's really great. And a couple of her recent albums, and then she has an album on a soundtrack. I forget what I saw, the TV Light maybe, that's really great that I've really been into. Yeah, Maggie Rogers. I don't know. It's let me look. I've got a best of see now. Have they made a best of 2025 playlist out of my best of 2024? They haven't. Or would it be a best of 2042? Would Apple Music do that? I don't know. It's my best of 2024 is mostly like Maggie Rogers, Biba Doobie, Caroline Polachek, and Holly Humberstone. So yeah, just the usuals.
What was that last one? Holly
Humberstone. She's a Brit. She's great.
Oh, well, come on.
Really, really great. Yeah. Oh, I love her stuff. She's great. She did an EP with Maddie from the 1975 because every artist I like apparently has a collaboration with Maddie from the 1975 at some point in their catalog. He's out there hunting them, but Holly Humberstone is great. Fantastic.
All right, if you would like to ask us a question for a future episode of the show, if you have any feedback or follow-up about today's episode, just go to upgradefeedback.com and you can send that in. You can check out Jason's work at sixcolors.com and you can hear him on Relay and at theincomparable.com. You can also listen to me on Relay 2 and check out my work at cortexbrand.com. You can find us online. Jason is at jsnell, JSNELL. I am at imyke, IMYKE. You can watch clips of this show on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, where we are at Upgrade Relay. Thank you to our members who support us of Upgrade Plus. Thank you to our sponsors, KRCS, Delete Me, and Fitbod. But most of all, thank you for listening. We'll be back next time. Until then, say goodbye, Jason Stone.
Goodbye, everybody.